Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. More particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, to our brethren in Georgia, in Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, in Africa, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia. And to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad, greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 14 on the subject, the 42 months prophecy. And this subject is closely connected to the oncoming presidential election of the United States of America. Now, first of all, I would like to make a short review that the focal point of the vision on Revelation chapter 10 from verse 1 to verse 11 is the symbolical sea and the symbolical earth. And according to the Shepherd's Rod, that naturally, it says on page 4 into TG number 15, you know that man naturally starts out with his right foot. Now, since the angel's right foot was upon the sea, and his left foot upon the land or the earth, the symbolism shows that he starts out on the sea, the province of Daniel's beast, Daniel chapter 7. Then on earth, the province of the two-horned beast, Revelation 13, verse 10 to 18. And to repeat again, the legs of the gospel are the legs of the people. 2 TG number 8, page 20. Indeed so, for the legs of the gospel are the legs of the people who proclaim it. So, in this study, we would like to repeat again that in the groundwork, the gospel proclamation is addressed to the sea. And we know that it is William Miller who are proclaiming the message and addressed to the four great denominations that had been raised by God during the Dark Ages. That is Lutherans, Presbyterian, Methodist, and Baptist. But in the final fulfillment of the prophecy, the gospel proclamation is directed, addressed to the symbolical earth, which is the United States of America. And it is even more pointing to this very year, 2020. The most exciting current events, the presidential election in the United States of America. Let us read again to TG 41, page 4. The most exciting current event that we know of is the presidential election, or the presidential election in the United States of America, which stands only 2 days in the future. And we will prove to you that that 2 days is prophetic, equivalent to 2 years. And of course, the climactic point on the subject on Revelation chapter 10 is the fulfillment of Revelation 11, verse 2. According to now let us read to TG number 14, page 16. The subject of chapter 10 ends with the second verse of chapter 11. The verse which brings us to the time of the measuring, meaning numbering of the people, which obviously is the numbering of the 144,000. Chapter 7, verse 3 to 8. For they are the only numbered company of people in the thread of prophecy. Thus it is that chapter 10, including verses 1 and 2, from chapter 11, begins at the time of the end and ends with the numbering of the 144,000. So, according to this reading, verse 2 is the last verse that pertains to the subject on chapter 10. Now, what is the main subject on Revelation chapter 10? We explained several times that it is concerning that little book, which is the book of Daniel. And as far as the book of Daniel is thus concerned, there are two particular subjects that had been dealt in the book of Daniel, and that is the cleansing of the sanctuary, the cleansing of the heavenly sanctuary, and the work of the exceeding great horn. Therefore, the significance that the book of Daniel is completely understood. The book of Daniel is completely opened. Is to completely or revealed concerning the cleansing in the heavenly sanctuary as well as the work of the exceeding great horn. The particular object in view by which Daniel do not understand, as stated in tract number 3, page 34, saying, the work of the exceeding great horn was therefore what he did not understand. Now, according to tract number 3, on page 49, saying, but the cleansing of the sanctuary at the end of the 2,300 days, according to Daniel 8 verse 14, and Daniel 7 verse 9 and 10, applies directly to the judgment among the dead. So, concerning the vision of Daniel, the direct application is pertaining to the judgment that pertains to the dead. And the shepherd's rod plainly told us that concerning the judgment that pertains to the dead, it says on page 20, White House Recruiter, as the cleansing of the sanctuary in behalf of the dead is necessarily purely a book transaction. That is the reason for its taking place only in the heavenly sanctuary. Only in the heavenly sanctuary. Or in other words, there is no book transaction that occurred on the earth. All the book transaction occurred only in the heavenly sanctuary. And that is the first aspect of the judgment, according to answerer number 5, page 30. Bookwork. The first aspect of the judgment, answerer number 5, page 30, saying, this is the first aspect of the judgment, and being only a bookwork, Daniel 7 verse 10, a work that does not disturb either the dead in the graves or the living in the church. It takes place in heaven. And concerning the cleansing of the sanctuary, the shepherd's rod made it so plain on tract number 3, page 53, saying, this startling revelation shows conclusively that the cleansing according to Daniel 8 verse 14 is first of the sanctuary in heaven and second of the sanctuary on earth. Now, in track number 5, 110. Let us read again the statement, saying, Revelation 11, verse 2. So we need to understand Revelation 11, verse 2, in track number 5, 110 and 111, to harmonize the statement in 2TG 14:16. Now let us read track number 5, page 110 and 111. But the court which is without the temple, leave out, and measure it not. For it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. Then it says, but why leave out the court? Why not measure it also? For since it is a part of the building, it too must be symbolical of saints. Obviously, because it represents the great multitude which no man could number, meaning measure, of all nations, and kindreds, and people, and tongues. Revelation 7, verse 9. The last who come from among the Gentiles. The court, in other words, is symbolical of the immeasurable or innumerable harvest of second fruits brought in after the measurable, numerable harvest of first fruits, the 144,000. It is not measured, meaning investigated, because it represents those among whom there are no bed to be cast out. For they are gathered in after the cleansing of the heavenly temple. Daniel 8, verse 14. After the judgment of the dead. After the separation of the bad from among the good in the church, as illustrated by the parable of the net. Matthew 13, verse 47 and 48. They are those who by name, my people, Revelation 18, verse 4. To come out of Babylon, and who with no unclean among them, Isaiah 52, verse 1, come into the already purified and living church of God. Now, remember, in 2TG, number 14, page 16. Let's read again. 2TG number 14, page 16. The subject of chapter 10 ends with the second verse of chapter 11. So when does the subject of chapter 10 ended? On the second verse of chapter 11. Now the question is, what is the subject on Revelation chapter 10? By which such subject is ended on the second verse of Revelation chapter 11. We need to establish first firmly what is the subject on Revelation chapter 10. So, we need to enumerate one by one. What is the subject on Revelation chapter 10? So, the subject of Revelation chapter 10. Now, before elaborating one by one, the subject on Revelation chapter 10, I would like to read first, track number 5, page 100. saying, events to take place just before the seventh trumpet sounds. Then, Revelation chapter 10. So, whatever the subject on Revelation chapter 10, it must be fulfilled before the seventh trumpet sounds. So, I would like to put here Revelation chapter 10, verse 1 to 11, including verse 1 and 2 in Revelation 11. So, whatever the subject here in Revelation chapter 10, verse 1 to 11, and 11, verse 1 and 2, it must be fulfilled before the seventh angel sound. So, that is the statement. Now, second, brothers and sisters, according to the consecrated way to Christian perfection, page 112, it says, and at that time, upon the word of the wonderful numberer in Daniel 8:14, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. In 1844 also was the very time of the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound. And when the mystery of God should be finished, as yet declared to his servants the prophets. To repeat again, in studying the trumpet study, there must be groundwork and particular object in view. According to track number 5, page 32, as well as page 34. So, there must be groundwork and particular object in view. And let us distinctly separate the groundwork and the particular object in view. Now, when does the seventh angel begins to sound? According to our reading on Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, page 112. The seventh angel commenced to sound when Jesus Christ entered into the most holy place, October 22, 1844. Now, I would like to remind again that Revelation chapter 10 is a part of the sixth trumpet. And let us distinctly separate the events of the sixth trumpet when Jesus Christ is in the holy place, and the events of the sixth trumpet when Jesus Christ is in the most holy place. Revelation chapter 10, the subject of Revelation chapter 10, it must be fulfilled before the seventh angel begins to sound. Track number 5, page 100. Simply indicating that whatever the subject on Revelation chapter 10, it must be fulfilled before Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place. Or, in other words, whatever the subject recorded on Revelation chapter 10, it must be fulfilled while Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place, or Jesus Christ is in the holy place, due to the fact that the voice of Jesus Christ cometh from the golden altar. Revelation 9:13. Also in track number 5, page 78. And it is called the sounding of the sixth trumpet. And to repeat again, it is the sixth trumpet and the seventh trumpet, which is closely connected to the Levitical priesthood and the priesthood of Jesus Christ, which is illustrated by that earthly priesthood that before the high priest will enter the most holy place, there must be sounding of trumpets for 10 days, which is typifying the proclamation of the message of William Miller for 10 years, according to White House Recruiter, page 19, according to that reading, beginning from 1833. And since the subject of Revelation chapter 10 is concerning the little book, which is the book of Daniel, also perfectly corroborating to the subject concerning the exceeding great horn, by which the shepherd's rod declared clearly in 2 SR 139, saying, "But the sanctuary and the daily were held to the ground by the great horn up to 1844. At that time, he lost control of them, and the power of the three angels' messages raised the truth from the ground or from underfoot and placed it in the church." 2 SR page 139. And that is the reason why Jesus Christ is very specific, definitely pointing the abomination stand in the holy place, simply indicating that that horn power is at work against God, against His truth, and against His people, while Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place, which is closely connected to this upcoming presidential election of the United States of America. So, we need to study closely this subject. But I would like to guarantee for sure, 100%, without any doubts, by the abundance of evidences that have been given by God to us through the Shepherd's Rod publications, whoever will win this presidential election in the United States of America, he is the president predicted here in Revelation 13 verse 15, saying, "And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast." So he will be the one to give life unto that image of the beast. That the image of the beast should both speak, and then it says, "and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed." Revelation 13, verse 15. And after the presidential election, November 3, from November 5 onwards, we will be focusing to the subject, the image of the beast. I would like to read that statement in the writings of Alonzo Jones, saying that God would not warn his people to avoid the image if the beast does not exist. So, it is even more appropriate to study the image of the beast at the time when that beast are already in existence, already sitting on the throne. So, it says here, let's read, saying, therefore we ask, what danger will there be that men will worship the beast at a time when there will be none for them to worship? God will never send an angel to warn men against the worship of the beast when the beast does not exist. Now, let us go back to our subject, brothers and sisters. So we focus our attention to, at this time, Revelation chapter 10. Now, I would like to go back again to the reading on 2TG number 14, page 16, saying, the subject of chapter 10 ends with the second verse of chapter 11. So, the subject of chapter 10 ends with the second verse of chapter 11. Therefore, verse 2 of chapter 11 is the climactic point of the subject on chapter 10. And that is why we need to have a clear conception. What are the subjects recorded on Revelation chapter 10? Verse 1 to 11 and Revelation 11, verses 1 and 2. And to repeat again, there must be groundwork and there must be particular object in view. In the groundwork, brothers and sisters, in the groundwork, we know that the very first messenger that had been raised by God is William Miller. And according to our reading on White House Recruiter on page 19, they start proclaiming the message in 1833, exactly 10 years, symbolizing the 10 days proclamation of the trumpet in the Levitical priesthood. Now, and to repeat again, the subject is also in connection with the midnight cry in Matthew 25, verse 1 to 10. By which, according to the Shepherd's Rod in 2SR 181, the coming of the bridegroom is Christ coming to the most holy place. And since the subject on Revelation chapter 10 is pointing to the book of Daniel, and the book of Daniel is divided into two different places, the earthly sanctuary and the heavenly sanctuary. On the earthly sanctuary, it is pertaining to the exceeding great horn. And on the heavenly sanctuary, it is pertaining to Christ's mediatorial work. And even more pertaining to the cleansing of the sanctuary. And we know that the cleansing of the sanctuary is pointing to the blotting out of names, by which such proceedings is performed in the holy place. Now, I would like to read again in track number 3, page 50 and page 51. As the cleansing of the heavenly sanctuary is a work of cleansing the books by blotting from them the names of both the backsliders and the tares. Track number 3, pages 50 and page 51. So that is the cleansing of the sanctuary, the blotting out of the names of the wicked. And that is the proceedings in the holy place. Now, we already read yesterday in track number 15 on page 57 saying, "Thus it is that while the first 4 seals carry us through the periods of the day in which the works of men are made manifest, the last 3 seals carry us through the day of God, the day in which His truth and His works are made manifest." Track number 15, pages 57 and page 58. And the works of men mentioned there is even more pertaining to that president in the United States of America. Because of all the beasts, he is the only one that is called a man. Here in 2SR, page 100, 2SR page 151, saying, "The idea that the papacy is called the beast is altogether wrong. The papacy is represented by symbol on 2 different beasts. First, on the nondescript of Daniel chapter 7, by the little horn having eyes like the eyes of a man and a mouth speaking great things. Second, on the leopard-like of Revelation chapter 13, by the head that was wounded to death. These beasts are universal, representing the entire world in their time, both civil and religious. Therefore, it could not be said of either beast, it is a man. The papacy being only a part of both beasts, horned head on one, and simply a wounded head on the other, cannot be called the beast. The two-horned beast is the only one representing a local, religio-political government. Therefore, of him alone can it be said it is a man. Thus, whosoever shall stand at the head of that persecuting power, as described in this chapter, so that's what I'm saying, whoever will win. What we are studying is the prophecy in connection with the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary. That it is very important to understand, brothers and sisters, that first, before continuing that statement, there are 7 beasts recorded in the Bible, 4 on the book of Daniel and 3 on the book of Revelation. But only the two-horned beast, which is called a man. But it could not be applied to all the President of the United States of America. Only to that President, whoever who will sit on that throne, on this presidential election, he must be the man predicted in the Bible. Why? So, the question is, why? Now, I would like to read track number 3, page 25. It says, from this juxtaposition of Daniel 8 verse 11 and 12 and Daniel 11 verse 31, the reader will observe that both scriptures are speaking of the same power. And Christ predicting the signs of the end of the world, as he looked forward along the stream of time, declared, when ye, his followers, who were to be living at the time, that this horned power was at work against God, against his truth, and against his people. Therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Matthew 24, verse 15 and verse 16. Now, let's study again and again the book of Daniel. Thus the book of Daniel in the days of Beti-Hotep had been completely understood. The positive answer is no. Here in the old symbolic code, 3 symbolic code, 8 to 10, page 8, it says, 3 symbolic code, 8 to 10, page 8. However, history proves that the prophecies of Daniel were not all revealed at once, but slowly. The fact that we as yet do not understand the whole book proves that some parts of it are yet closed. And the prominent one by which it was not clearly understood by Beti-Hotep is Daniel 11 verse 45, as well as Daniel chapter 12. And Daniel 11 verse 45 is closely connected to the presidential election in the United States of America. Now let us go back again to the statement in 2SR, page 151. It says, thus whosoever shall stand at the head, and I would like to elaborate this statement in these present occurrences. Thus whosoever shall win this presidential election, the one who shall stand at the head of that persecuting power, as described in this chapter and represented by the beast, is the one who shall bear the mystical number 666. So that number 666 is a mystical number Then it says, let us go back again. Thus, whosoever shall stand at the head of that persecuting power, as described in this chapter and represented by the beast, is the one who shall bear the mystical number 666. The spirit of prophecy also states that the king of the north brought to view in Daniel 11 verse 45 and the two-horned beast of Revelation 13 is the same power, and that it shall bear this mystical number 666. 100% without any doubts, this president who will sit in office after that presidential election, he will be the one to fulfill Daniel 11, verse 45. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters, because the Bible cannot be mistaken. Why is it that we are very certain that this is the last and the final presidential election in the United States of America? The most memorable presidential election in the United States of America. Because of the book of Daniel. And Jesus Christ is very plain, definitely telling you and I that this abomination, brothers and sisters, will be set up while Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place. That is the reason why Jesus Christ specifically mentioned the holy place. Why? Because the shepherd says, I would like to read again in 2SR page 139. It says, but the sanctuary and the daily were held to the ground by the great horn up to 1844. At that time, in October 22, 1844, he lost control of them. In the power of the three angels' messages, raised the truth from the ground or from underfoot and placed it in the church. If the exceeding great horn is still trodden underfoot, the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary, up to October 22, 1844, or from October 22, 1844 onwards, then the words of Jesus Christ must be a mistake. Brothers and sisters, but by which Jesus Christ is specifically mentioned only the holy place, not the most holy place. Now, since I would like to go back again. Since we are studying the exceeding great horn, let us have a little view first. In 2SR 139, it says, the horn bears rule over all the earth. 2SR 139. And the Shepherd's Rod called it undeniable facts. What is that undeniable facts? The quotation given is Daniel 2 verse 39. That the Bible cannot be mistaken. It is during the brass kingdom that shall be ruled over all the earth. Remember, brethren, the main subject is the horn. You remember our reading in track number 3, page 25. That the focal point of Matthew 24, verse 15 and 16 is pointing to Christ's followers. Undoubtedly, they are the 144,000 living saints. They were living in a time when this horn power is at work. At work. Against God. Against the daily and the sanctuary. And against His people. And here is very plain in 2SR 139, the horn bears rule over all the earth. When? The brass kingdom, it says, Daniel 2 verse 39. But the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain that the brass kingdom represented by Grecian never did be ruled over all the earth. 2SR 139 and 140. Is Daniel wrong? No. The book of Daniel is accurate, plainly telling you and I that the brass having the numerical value of number 3, according to track number 2, page 13, plainly indicating that it is in the third period of the exceeding great horn that He will bear rule over all the earth. Track number 3, page 39. The 3 periods of the exceeding great horn: pagan, papal, and Protestant period. And according here in 2SR 140, it says, had Daniel said of the nondescript beast? Had Daniel said of the nondescript beast, symbol of imperial and papal Rome, that it would be ruled over all the earth? The claim would prove incorrect. The claim would prove incorrect if we will be saying that the exceeding great horn be ruled all over the earth in the period of pagan Rome or period of papal Rome. It is erroneous. If that is the case, then the Bible would not be very specific that it must be the brass kingdom. Not the brass kingdom itself, but to let us know that brass has a numerical value of number 3, indicating it must be in the third period of the exceeding great horn, the Protestant period. But what had been trodden underfoot by the exceeding great horn? Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place. And that is the reason why God commanded His servant to measure the temple. The temple, they are those who died on the first 5 seals. And that is very plain in the Great Controversy 421, as well as on track number 5, pages 109 and page 110. Now, I would like to show to you first. That Christ's mediatorial work begin in the holy place, begin in 44 AD to ended in October 22, 1844. Because at this time, Christ's mediatorial work up to 2011 is in the most holy place. This one is holy place. During this period of time, I would like to repeat again, God allowed, God permitted that the exceeding great horn shall trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary. What does it mean? That the people of God living in this period of time, they were in total darkness concerning Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place. But why is it that God allowed such satanic work? It's so because, in reality, the dead, those who are destined for grave and resurrection, God do not require them to have a complete understanding what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary. Such requirement is intended only to the saints that will no longer to taste death. And in order for them to understand, comprehend it clearly, God bestowed the photograph, the type, the groundwork. That which we read several times in 1 SR page 66 that the price to work out the picture is we cannot estimate the price because thousands of lives have been sacrificed just to produce the picture. So it is very important to understand the proceedings and only through the rod, because the Bible is very plain. Revelation 11 verse 1. Only through the shepherd's rod message. During this period of time, the proceedings is the first 5 seals. And it is called temple. Is it the particular object in view? No. Because in tract number 15, page 57, the works of that man. Who is that man? The predicted president in the United States of America. What is that work? Represented by the exceeding great horn. He will trodden underfoot the daily in the sanctuary. But the shepherd's rod is very specific. It says, during the time of the proceedings of the first 4 seals. How about this one? This is first 4 seals. From 1844 to 2011. Is it in that period of time? No. Because it must be during the proceedings of the first 4 seals or after the proceedings of the first 4 seals when Jesus Christ is in the holy place. During this time, Jesus Christ is in the most holy place. We will show to you a little diagram. You remember that diagram, time of the end? Before we'll push forward. That is latest. Um, you see this diagram, the time of the end and the sixth trumpet. What is the time of the end? In the old codes, it says that is the period of time, just the end of the world. The end of the world, it is also called harvest. Right? I will elaborate that later. So this is the time of the end, which is also called midnight cry. 10 years proclamation of the message by William Miller, the groundwork. And this is the end of the world. The proceedings in the most holy place. So this is the antitype. The time of the end from 2011 to March 27, 2021, by which the proceedings, the last two seals, the altar and the worshippers, and it is also called the midnight cry. Both of them are exactly 10 years. So here you can see sounding of the sixth trumpet on its primary phase, while Jesus Christ is in the holy place. It is also sounding of the sixth trumpet. Jesus Christ is in the holy place. Now, let's go back again, brothers and sisters. It's very important that we, all Shepherd's Rod believers, brethren, it is no longer time now that we need to fight against each other. The most important is we, all the Bereans, will be prepared to have all our names retained in the Lamb's Book of Life. I am not bothered in reality, brothers and sisters, who will be or fighting very hard to prove that we are the true movement. For me, the most important part is to know the entire plan of redemption. Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary is about finished in the holy place. And what we are doing. Brothers and sisters, that is why in 1 Psalm 122 it says, are we awake? What is going on in the heavenly sanctuary? Now, let's go back again to our subject. First, I would like to focus to this upcoming presidential election in the United States of America. November 3, 2020. No one would disagree that the shepherd's rod is very plain. That horn power points out to that predicted president of the United States of America. That is very plain. I think, let me see. if I could find that statement. I think there is a statement in Selected Messages saying that America, let me see if I could find that exact words. In Selected Messages, Book 3, on page let me see. You see it, Book 3, is it battlefield, or that America will become the 3SM, 387. Okay. So it says, America can become the place of greatest peril. So let us read the statement given by the prophet. It says, and ponder deeply, brothers and sisters, that protection of Sister White is no longer far distant, but it is really disheartening on myself to see the Berean. Instead that they will love each other, instead that they will sit down together as Christians to study closely, to help each other to know what is the will of God. Because we are the only people that we have the Shepherd's Rod publications, that all the information is given by God unto us. But what happened? They were more interested to lift up themselves by saying, we are the true movement. Brothers and sisters, think it thoroughly. It says, America, where the greatest light from heaven has been shining upon the people, the writings of William Miller, the writings of Sister White, the writings of Alonzo Jones, the writings of Wagoner, the writings of B.T. Hotep, these 5 inspired writers, all of them were in the United States of America. Look at the Jewish nation. All the writers of the Bible were Israelites. And that is why Sister White compared United States of America to ancient Israel. I would like to read Por Ispi. It says here, 398. The greatest and most favored nation upon the earth is the United States. You see? The greatest and most favored nation upon the earth is the United States. A gracious providence has shielded this country and poured upon her the choices of heaven's blessings. Here the persecuted and oppressed have found refuge. Here the Christian faith in its purity has been taught. These people had been the recipients of great light and unrivaled mercies. But these gifts had been repaid by ingratitude and forgetfulness of God. The Infinite One keeps a reckoning with the nations, and their guilt is proportioned to the light rejected. A fearful record now stands in the register of heaven against our land. But the crime which shall fill up the measure of her iniquity is that of making void the law of God. So, the same with the nation of Israel became once as a favored nation, the greatest nation. But what happened? It is repaid by ingratitude and forgetfulness of God. The same with the United States of America. And that's why it says, America, let's read again. America, where the greatest light from heaven has been shining upon the people, can become the place of greatest peril and darkness because the people do not continue to practice the truth and walk in the light. Did we, the Berean, continue to practice the truth and walk into the light? If we continue to practice the truth and walk into the light, the Berean would not be divided today. The same with the condition among Christians. Now, let us go back again. To our main subject. And prophecy must be fulfilled. To repeat again, the shepherd's rod plainly told us here in to us R151. Let me read to you. Thus whosoever shall stand at the head of that persecuting power. Who is that persecuting power? The horn power. Ponder deeply this passage and study closely. What is that persecuting power? The horn power. The predicted horn power. What is that horn? That is civil authority, right? The horn power which is at work against God, against His truth, and against His people. Track number 3, page 25. Who is that horn power that is at work against God, against His people, against His truth? Dark ages, that is horn head. Little horn head. Is it pagan Rome? The shepherds are declared clearly, no. Because when Jesus Christ uttered the words, it is still in the future and it will take place several centuries from the time Jesus Christ uttered the words. Track number 12, page 81. So that horn power, which is at work against God, at work against His truth, and against His people, according to our reading, whoever wins, thus whosoever will stand at the head. Why is it that I am so certain that this is the last and the final presidential election in the United States of America? Because of the sanctuary doctrine. Brothers and sisters, what will happen if he will lose control of them? The exceeding great horn. Now, this is first question. What event by which the exceeding great horn lost control of the daily and the sanctuary? When Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place. Thus the exceeding great horn had been able to darken the understanding of God's people when Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place since October 22, 1844? No. Because even the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they have knowledge that Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place in October 22, 1844. Or in other words, there is no such prediction in the Bible that the exceeding great horn had been able to darken the understanding of God's people concerning Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary in the most holy place. But rather, it says it practiced and prospered. He had been able to completely darken the understanding of God's people of Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary, in the holy place. Not even one in the United States of America have knowledge that Jesus Christ is no longer in the most holy place since 2011. So the Bible is accurate. What does it mean by He bears rule over all the earth? Thus, in the first period of the exceeding great horn, the pagan Rome had not been able to trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary. The Jewish church had been completely defeated by the devil. According to 2SR page 69. But why is it that it cannot be applied in that time? That He be rule all over the earth. First, in reality, Palestine never represented by earth. In track number 5, page 45, that is represented by the sea. And secondly, the place by which the sanctuary, the Jewish church that had been trodden underfoot by the devil, Jesus Christ raised up a movement, the Apostolic Church. The same situation during the Dark Ages, the Ephesus. That sanctuary had been defeated by the devil and trodden underfoot. But the place by which the devil had been able to trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary, God raised up a divinely called movement. That is only the difference on the last period in the Protestant period, because that is the sanctuary had been trodden underfoot, but as well as the place itself. Track number 4, page 26. Note that the truth and the place, not the sanctuary itself, were cast down. That is, both Christ's truth and His place in the early sanctuary were set aside so that the knowledge as to His mediatorial work became obscured. Track number 4, page 26. Not only the sanctuary, but as well as the place itself. What does it mean? First, pointing to the vineyard, the place by which God raised up the sanctuary, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But not only the sanctuary that had been trodden underfoot, but as well as the place. Meaning, God no longer raised a divinely called movement in the United States of America. And Satan is only laughing in the dark. They were quarreling and bickering each other, while in reality, not even one among them is God's divinely called movement. All of them are the 7 antitypical brothers of David, quarreling and bickering each other, while in reality, they were in total ignorance concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. And not only that, Isaiah 60 verse 2, this coming March 27, 2021, the United States of America, there will be gross spiritual darkness. Do not wait the time that you will be among them, groping in darkness. Spiritual darkness. Now, I would like to try to connect one subject to the other. We have the 2,300 days, right? By which the first 490 years of the 2,300 years is allotted to the Jews. And according to Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, let us read again. Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, page 112 and 113, 111 and 112. It says, after the 490 years of the limitation upon the Jews in Jerusalem, there yet remaining 1,810 years to the Gentiles. This period beginning, as we have found, in the fall of AD 34, reaches inevitably to the fall of AD 1844, and marks that date as the expiration of the 2,300 years. And at that time, upon the word of the wonderful numberer, in Daniel 8 verse 14, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. In 1844 also was the very time of the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when it shall begin to sound, and when the mystery of God should be finished, as yet declared to his servants, the prophets. Now let us focus to the two divisions of time of the 2,300 years. 490 years and 1,810 years. Now, I would like to show the two divisions of time. The 2,300 years. That is the main subject in Daniel chapter 8. So, October 16, 457 BC to October 16, 34 AD. So this is the first period, 490 years. And the second period is 1,810 years. Up to October 22, 1844. What is the intention on the first period? And the intention on the second period? Does God's intention, God's purpose, had been fulfilled on the first period? Does God's intention and God's purpose have been fulfilled in the second period? Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. Does these events do not run parallel to the exceeding great horn? That there are three periods? Now, I would like to read first, Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection. Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, on page 114, 115, and 116. What this cleansing means is plainly declared in the very scripture which we are now studying, Daniel 9, verse 24 to 28. So what is recorded in Daniel 9, verse 24 to 28? Then it says, for the angel of God, in telling to Daniel the truth concerning the 2,300 days, tells also the great object of the Lord in this time. So the great object of the Lord in this time, the 2,300 years, as it relates to both the Jews and the Gentiles. The 70 weeks or 490 years of the limitation upon the Jews and Jerusalem is definitely declared, first, to finish the transgression. Second, to make an end of sins. Third, to make reconciliation for iniquity. Fourth, to bring everlasting righteousness. Fifth, to seal up the vision. Sixth, to seal up the prophecy. Seventh, to anoint the most holy. Daniel 9 verse 24. Thus, this seven divine purpose, eternal purpose of God, had been carried out in the first period. If not, is it carried out in the second period? Let us familiarize because it is closely connected to our subject in Revelation 10, verse 5 to 7. The mystery of God should be finished. What is that mystery? That this divine purpose must be finally be carried out. Now let's read the paragraph. It says, that is the true purpose of God in the sanctuary and its service in all time, whether in the figure or in the true, whether for Jews or for Gentiles, whether on earth or in heaven. 70 weeks or 490 years was the limitation set for the Jews to have this accomplished for and in themselves, to accomplish this to that people of all people. Christ himself came in person to show to them the way and to lead them in this way, but they would not have it. Instead of seeing in him the gracious one who would finish transgression and make an end of sins and make reconciliation for iniquity and bring in everlasting righteousness to every soul, they saw in him only Beelzebub, the prince of the devils, only one instead of whom they would readily choose a murderer, only one who as king they would openly repudiate and choose a Roman Caesar as their only king, only one whom they counted as fit only to be crucified out of the world. For such a people as that, and in such a people, and make an end of sins, and make reconciliation for iniquity, and bring in everlasting righteousness? Impossible. Impossible. By their own persistent rebellion, instead of his being allowed by them to do such a gracious and wonderful work for them from the depths of divine pity and sorrow, he was compelled to say to them, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered the children together, even as a hen had gathered her chicken under her wings, and ye would not. The nation to whom the kingdom of rejection by the Jews was the Gentiles. And what is specific nation would you think? Brothers and sisters, that is our main subject. It is the United States of America, the second nation, the most favored nation. Now, let us read. It says, and that which was to be done for the Jews in the 490 years, which were limited to them, but which they would not at all allow to be done for them, that is the identical thing to be done for the Gentiles to whom the kingdom of God is given in the 1810 years allotted to them. And that work is to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy So in this reading, the 7 divine eternal purpose of God to be accomplished to His church was still unfulfilled. Then what happened to the groundwork? Thus, the churches in the United States of America accepted the message of William Miller. It was generally rejected, right? Generally rejected. As stated in the Great Controversy 390. And it says, brothers and sisters, let us read again. And that work is to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. This portion, to bring in everlasting righteousness, is very significant because that is one of the significance that God make him ruler over all His goods. Here in 2SR page 179, it says, the significance of all His goods, first, is the finishing of the gospel. Finishing of the gospel is to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, reconciliation for iniquity. And then it says, the significance of all His goods is the finishing of the gospel. Second, bringing everlasting righteousness and ushering in the kingdom of Christ. What a wonderful promise. Now, I would like to to prove to you that through the Shepherd's Rod publications, we can easily discern that both of them are only groundwork. Both of them are only groundwork. This 490 years, both of them is pointing to the year 2021. March 27, 2021. By which in Bible calendar, that is October 10, 2022. That 490 years, the perfect fulfillment must be from 1531 AD. For 190 years, you will fall on 2021. How about 1,810 years? That is symbolical. 18, that is pointing to April 18, 1844, the commencement of the ingathering, because we studied several times that there are 3 doctrines that had been given by God to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Track number 5, page 108. What is that 3 doctrines? Investigative judgment, October 22, 1844. Second, ingathering, April 18, 1844. And the numbering of the 144,000. May 27, 1844. By which that three doctrines can never be understood without the rod. So, that is pointing to that number 18, pointing to April 18. This 10, pointing to the Day of Atonement, October 10. This is the very year, March 27, 2021, God's divine purpose will be completely finished. Now, let us go back again to our main subject. Since 2011, Jesus Christ is in the holy place. And His mediatorial work in the holy place will be finished in 2021. Now, how could we be very certain that this is the last and the final presidential election in the United States of America? To repeat again, because of the sanctuary doctrine. That the horn power is at work against God, against His truth, and against His people, while Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place. This is the entire period. Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place. Does the exceeding great horn is already at work in 2011? No. Because the Shepherd's Rod says in track 15, page 57, that is after the proceedings of the first four seals is finished, and it was finished in 2016. Does the exceeding great horn is already at work at this time? Yes. At work of what? To give life to that image of the beast. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to put here November 3, 2020. What will happen, brothers and sisters, if the exceeding great horn will lose control of the daily and the sanctuary? Let us put here March 27, 2021. On March 27, 2021, He will lose control of the daily and the sanctuary. What does it mean that He will lose control? Now, I would like to go back first to enumerate the important points. Thank God, because God employed the fulfilled prophecies to serve as the groundwork, according to track number 5, page 34, so that we could find no difficulty in comprehending the message, because God already provided us an accurate photograph. That was the Shepherd's Rod called it as the picture, portraying with unmistakable evidence the true object 1 SR 226. What is the answer given by 2 SR 139? What period of time by which the exceeding great horn lost control of the daily and the sanctuary? October 22, 1844. What is the occurrence in October 22, 1844? Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place. Give an absolute answer. Why is it that Jesus Christ is very specific that such abomination stand in the holy place? To let us know that such horn power is at work at the time when Jesus Christ is in the holy place. When Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place. That is very plain, right? Therefore, when Jesus Christ will enter to the most holy place, what is that? The second invisible coming of Jesus Christ, represented by the stone. What happened to the image? Break into pieces. Lost control of them. So, in this study, brothers and sisters, closely connected Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2 verse 44. In the days of these kings, the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom. First, pointing to the spiritual kingdom. Remember, in track number 6, page 55, and page 56, that Christ receives the kingdom while Jesus Christ was still in the heavenly sanctuary. That kingdom is the spiritual kingdom. That according to answerer number 2, page 88, he acquires ownership. He claimed them as his own. Now, I would like to read Desire of Ages. Desire of Ages, page 34. It says, the dying words of Jacob filled them with hope. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shelah come. Genesis 49 verse 10, the waning power of Israel testified that the Messiah's coming was at hand. The prophecy of Daniel pictured the glory of his reign over an empire which should succeed all earthly kingdoms, and say the prophet, it shall stand forever. Daniel 2 verse 44. If you still remember in our study, brothers and sisters, that concerning the 7 trumpets, being the respective trumpet to the 7th seal, the mere fact that God reversed the order of the judicial insignia in track number 15, page 64, to let us know that the fulfillment of the 7th trumpet is reverse order. Verse 19, 18, 17, 16, and 15. And verse 15 is the last message that will be pronounced while Jesus Christ is in the holy place. Because when Jesus Christ is in the most holy place, Christ's second coming, all earthly kingdoms will vanish away. That's why here in 2TG, let's read the statement given by the Shepherd's Rod, 2TG number 13, page 9. That the seventh trumpet represents the last message is quickly seen from reading Revelation 11 verse 15. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven, saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Here we see that the last message on earth is the message which announces the end of all earthly governments. Whether it is secular, civil, or religious, if you are not under the government of God, and you belong to the earthly governments, you will be forever lost. That every man-made institutions, here in 1TG number 42, it says here in page 8, I would like to read, it says, we are sent with a message, 1TG 42, page 8, we are sent with a message to the church, and definitely shows that we have come to the time of the end, the time in which man-made institutions are forever to pass away. At this time, what is the most important is that we need to be very certain that our institution is God's institutions. Brethren, we cannot deceive God, and we cannot impose to God. We can shout with a big mouth throughout the whole world, but as long as that institution was not established by God, we're only deceiving our own selves. The boundary line is getting nearer and nearer. The Shepherd's Rod declared in 2SR, page 124, it says, 2SR page 124, knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? So-called Christians, like the Pharisees, become offended when told of their errors and rebuked for their sins. But he answered and said, every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Make it sure, brethren, that the organization by which we belong, it is planted by God. Every plant which is not planted by God the Father shall be rooted up. Now, I would like to go back to our subject. To repeat again, according to tract number 8, page 21, that it is during the sealing of the 144,000 that God commanded the 4 angels to hold the 4 winds. What is the 4 winds? The mark of the beast system. When that mark of the beast system will be in existence, that is the time when Jesus Christ, or when Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place, that horn power is at work. At work of what? To establish the mark of the beast system. When? After the proceedings of the first 4 seals. When does the proceedings of the first 4 seals ended? 2016. Why is it that B.T. Hotep says that the most exciting current events that we know of is the presidential election of the United States of America, which only stand only 2 days in the future? This was written November 6, 1948, 2 TJ 41, page 3. Therefore, it is prophetic. Two days, November 6 plus 2, that is November 8. That is the presidential election in 2016. Therefore, in that period of time, the horn power is already at work. And that predicted event will be finally accomplished after this presidential election of the United States of America. It's very clear to understand when God commanded, hold the 4 winds. What is the 4 winds? Mark of the beast system. It cannot be called winds if it is still a bill. Because a bill cannot blow. It must be pointing to a law. That when God commanded, hold the 4 winds, meaning that bill pertaining to the mark of the beast system already became a law. But they work it in the dark, canceling the true issue. Volume 5, page 452. But we are very certain by the Word of God that that system are already in existence at the commencement of the sealing of the 144,000. But it was held by the 4 angels that such law cannot be implemented as long as the sealing of the 144,000 are still unfinished. Therefore, the statement that he will speak like a dragon, that is the time by which the law will be implemented. And that is the time when the 144,000 will be disclosed to view. I would like to remind again that according to the vision of Sister White in Early Writings, page 38, the time that Jesus Christ pleaded to God the Father to hold the four winds. Why? Because the remnant were not yet sealed. Why is it that they are called remnant? Because the blotting out of names were already finished. Stated in 1 TG number 6, page 38. The holy ones whose names left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. What does it mean? The end part of Revelation 11 verse 2, numbering of the 144,000. Declaring that the names that had been left in the Lamb's Book of Life are 144,000 living saints. And we cannot declare that number according to track number 5. It says on page 108, the investigative judgment decides the cases of those who have professed faith in God and who in consequence have had their names recorded in the books, Daniel 7 verse 10, but some of whom have not endured to the end. It determines which names shall be retained and which shall be blotted out. So not until the investigation is completed. The same with the statement in track number 6. The investigative judgment is completed. Now, let me read to you again, track number 6, and also in the Old Symbolic Code. So it says here, track number 6, on page 55. The scriptures make clear that while in the sanctuary, Christ receives the kingdom after the thrones are cast down and after the investigative judgment is completed. The same here. What investigation? What investigative judgment? Blotting out of names. It says, so not until the investigation is completed, the sanctuary cleansed from unworthy members will the books show the exact number of names that will be retained and accounted worthy of life eternal. What is the exact number of names that will be retained? 144,000, because they are the only numbered company of people. 2 TG 14:16. The climactic point of the subject in Revelation chapter 10. The many nations. Therefore, on March 27, 2021, that is the time that the exact number, 144,000, left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Any names that found not written in the Lamb's Book of Life, they shall worship the beast, his image. Revelation 13 verse 8. You cannot avoid, because the only protection is the power of God. And God cannot protect anyone whose names are not found written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So, brothers and sisters, to repeat again, by the sanctuary doctrine, the only medium that we could ascertain clearly what is going on the earth. And that statement in the old symbolic code is really happening today. The churches, although it is not complete, the statement incompletely, because not all of them, but majority of the churches, it is already a union of church and state, because supposed to be the church should not engage in political parties. But what happened? This is the only presidential election of the United States of America that it seems all the churches in the United States of America engage in political parties. Prophecy must be fulfilled. Hoping that every Davidian, brothers and sisters, should deal it seriously. Let us stop fighting against each other. Let us study closely the Bible. It's for prophecy, the Shepherd's Rod publications. Because the time is fast running out, brothers and sisters. So thank you very much for listening. We'll continue this subject on our next episode. And from November 4 onwards, we'll be focusing to the image of the beast, or the beast and its image. So, thank you very much. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.